Alright guys, so yeah, we're back. This is the Zerg versus Protoss. Today we're gonna be going against my friend Aeneas. He's been doing pretty nice. Um, so let's get into the tutorial. So, this is, as you guys know, it's pretty standard for Zerg to go 16, 18, 17, 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool. That's exactly what I did. And you'll see this a lot with Protoss players. What to scout for? That's a common issue for Zerg players. When the Overlord comes to the other side of the map, you want to search for whether or not they have two gates, whether they have one gate, they have the Cyber Core up, or they have the Nexus. So what I'm looking for is a wall in the front, which is typical, or a wall in the top, which is also kind of less. It's less typical, more typical in low elos, or there may not be a wall at all. So in this specific case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for the gateway. So there's a gate, there's a pylon, and there's a nexus. Now, what he just did was he placed the gateway, then the nexus, then the cybercore. What's more common low elo is to go cybercore, then nexus. But nexus is better because you get workers quicker and therefore faster units because you have higher income to support the units. So obviously he goes warp gate, and I'm just kind of sitting home with my 4 Zerglings. I'm just getting a few queens up, pneumatized carapace for scouting. And then he scouts the Baneling nest, which is okay, it's not really a big problem. Baneling nest, you should definitely go Baneling nest if you're not going roaches. Typically against Protoss I would go roach, 69 health. Typically I would go roaches against Protoss in like a roach cheese sort of method. So what I normally do against Protoss is, if you guys saw the burrowed roaches video that I posted, it's basically the same thing, but instead of after you get the 44 workers, you're just pumping out roaches and then therefore ravagers. You're not going burrow at all, and you're just getting upgrades. It's basically the same build, but you're just trying to get roaches and ravagers and just walk over them. So there's no need to get burrowed roaches, just get Guile Reconstitution and run across the map, and you'll probably win. So yeah, let's keep going. Get the third base. It's kind of late. Not really. I mean, yeah, it is kind of late. But you can see he's sending over Observer, which is definitely smart to scout what I'm going for. He sees the Banelings. And then I was going to go for this cheeky Baneling drop right here. By the way, if it was a normal game, what you definitely should be doing is taking a bunch of Banelings. You can just morph about 15 Banelings. And typically low elo people aren't really looking at the mini-map that much. So when their third base comes up, their third base probably isn't going to come up by now if it's low elo. But when it does come up, or you can even just do it in the natural if there's no wall, you just run the Baneling, I mean there's Shogunatha, but you can get the Banelings come from here, or if they have a third, come from here, and you roll them through one side of the mineral line, or both sides of the mineral line. So the idea is, if you have Banelings here, coming through here, and you have Banelings coming through here, the workers don't have an area to escape, and you blow up the entire mineral line. That's what I would do. But in this scenario, you don't really see this too often, but it's a legitimate build where he's just going, makes it seem like he's going with a standard build, and then a few minutes later after I scout, or almost directly after, he just makes a bunch of gateways, then a huge number of zealots, and then he just walks across the map. Now, of course, I see this. Let's just slow it down. Of course, I see it, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't good because this is a lot of stuff. Definitely isn't a small army. Now, if you actually look at the supply counts, 61 workers, which is definitely good in a macro game, almost 3 base saturation. He has 38 workers, so if I fend off the attack, I'm gonna be better in the long run because he only has 2 base or 3 bases, but he's mostly only supported on 2-base economy, because he hasn't even saturated the second base. So now, he's got this warp prism here, which is just to constantly warp in units to keep on the aggression. Now I just start not warping, morphing. Now I have about the same amount of lings as he does zealots, and obviously that's not going to end well. But now what I did was I went carapace. Yeah, I went level 2, +2 carapace after I went lair. The lair is always same time as always. But I went 3 evo. So together you get +2 carapace and then +2 melee, because I wasn't expecting to need to go roaches this early on. And then so I transitioned into roaches after I found out that he was doing this. And then here the banelings are about to pop. Now if you just pay attention to supply counts, 125 it is. And if you look at it now, it's 75. So if I didn't have those banelings, I clearly would have lost. And if you guys didn't know already, banelings do extra damage to light units. I think it's about like double. So it pretty much, I think it's like 2 or 3 shots a zealot. And if they're all clumped up like that, he's going to lose his whole army. So now he has 31 army supply, I have 32 army supply, but I still have a bigger bank and or actually no, that's not, or I have more minerals, less gas, but the army supply, it's a little bit in favor of me, but not too much. But as you can see, it's really starting to ramp up because his third base isn't saturated at all. My third base is fully saturated, and I still have enough larvae to last me. Now, he's doing a really good job here, constantly bringing up the harass. So I have to constantly make roaches or constantly make zerglings and such to defend this constant aggression. At this point, he's kind of just being a nuisance. The only issue that I see here is he has enough money to make a bunch of zealots, like, constantly. But what I don't see is him making workers. So if you are a Protoss player out there and you're watching this video, make workers. Workers are easy to make because you have chrono boosts. You don't, and obviously chrono boost out your upgrades first, but chrono boost out drone, or not drones, probes, because those are really important, especially with Protoss with such expensive units. You definitely need those. Although you do need to look at the minimap frequently because there is a tendency for players to not look at their minimaps, and therefore they're going to run into a bunch of harass and they're not going to see it, and then you're going to lose your at one point you're just going to look at your minimap, you see, oh, I'm just about to attack your enemy, like a move across, and then they counter attack with a baneling run by, and then just lose everything. So you definitely don't want that to happen. And if you're a Zerg player, you should be spreading creep. I'm not really doing it because I'm kind of focused on just amassing an army at this point. So I'm just kind of getting the Queen Infestation Pit for the lair for better upgrades. I went Hydra Den, but it's kind of unnecessary. You don't really need it because he's not really going. If I were to scout again, I don't really see any air here, so I would be completely fine just to go roaches, and I would be okay. So Zerg has the benefit of just getting more stuff than the enemy. So assume that and obviously I am going to get more stuff because I'm on 3 bases and I have 3 bases of larvae. And I can constantly, and I'm getting a 4th right now, and I'm constantly bringing up the aggression with, and you see I'm kind of amassing an army of roaches here. And my army is significantly larger than his, is 68 to 35, so I don't really have to do any sort of micro. I should have microed. If you look at my vision, I should have like started a step back, but it's completely okay. I'm not doing anything bad here.
The mineral field has been depleted.
Like nothing detrimental to me. And now, the more he's forced to use battery overcharge. And then I'm just walking in, kind of, now I'm starting stepping a little bit. Now, the issue here is he isn't pulling drones. He should have, or excuse me, probes. That, like I said in previous videos, you should definitely pull the probes to attack the army. Because if my army, if I'm not microing it correctly, will kill the probes, and not the immortals. So if the immortals are shelling away at my roaches, I'm most likely gonna die, because immortals just do amazing damage to armored. So if you actually see how much damage right there. My health was about, how many of those bars? Like 7 of the bars, and then now it's 2 bars. So now that's just immense damage. And the probes that don't really do too bad because you can actually surround my army and then use your main army to do the main damage. But I'm doing pretty good here because although I'm not really able to sort of defeat the army head on, or I mean in this scenario I am, because I'm constantly remaxing. So that's something that you guys need to keep in mind of early on when you start playing the game at low elo. Is first of all you need to queen inject. Second of all, you need to get your upgrades. That's a common mistake also. And you also need to keep on spending your larva. Because if you don't spend your larva and it keeps on overflowing, then you can't get your units as fast as it can be. And that's the most important because you want to keep on remaxing to kill the army over and over. And I'm target firing immortals, they do the most damage. And now, he's not pulling probes. That's the problem. I mean, he's doing a solid defense. He didn't lose the game. Honestly, a lot of lower elo players definitely would have lost already. But honestly, I should have lost way early on with that big attack had it not been for the Banelings. So, put on the Banelings. Now he's pulling the probes, but it's too late. He's kind of just building his army up now. Try and fend off this attack. Now my upgrades are 1-2, and his upgrades are 0-0. I think he's about to finish +1. Yeah, he's about to finish +1. When I'm on my 4th base, I'm saturating the 4th now. I'm just pumping out as many roaches as possible. It doesn't matter. At this point, it doesn't really matter about efficiency. I'm kind of just running my army in and just if I do any sort of damage, I'm winning because as long as he's not mining out of his 3rd base, he'll eventually run out of money. And I'll be on like infinite bases, and he'll be stuck on 2 bases, and he's gonna be forced to do a desperation move, which he'll basically have to all in my army. And if it doesn't work, he's gonna be forced to tap out. So in this scenario, I actually got Tunnel and Claws, just like sort of to add pressure to it. But I did forget to get Burrow because I'm smart. And he actually does have detection here. I scouted it eventually. I don't know if do I see it here? Okay, yeah, I do see it here. But there's a cannon coming up. And also there's a setting in the options tab in game that allows you to click on the structures to see like the structures that are in production to see what they are. I don't recall what it's called, but just check up on it. It's very important because a lot of structures when they're coming up look the same. So if you look at a gateway that's coming up, it might look like a cyber core and vice versa. So definitely equip that. Or not equip, but you know what I mean. And I'm kind of just trying to start doing a little bit of damage here, trying to pull his army like closer to my army so I could launch a massive attack and so he can't remax. I don't really want him to push. So he's not really going to push into this. Or at least you shouldn't. So I'm kind of just gonna get the gateway here. But now he's pushing me back, and now this is when I need to start microing here. And he's doing a pretty good job blocking, but he just doesn't have enough immortals. And he's not really making immortals because he's kind of broke. Now this is what I was saying. If he's on 2 bases the whole game, and I'm on 4 bases, he's not really going to be sitting well because he's got no money to make immortals, which are the big counters to the roach, and it's just not going to work. And then every single time I attack him, he's just going to lose an immortal. He lost another immortal there. They do have barrier, and they also do have massive damage to armored, but it's just not enough damage to deal with all these roaches. Yeah, so as you guys can see in the middle, versus armored 55 damage. Now the roaches actually have how much health? 145, so it gets 3 shot. So every single time that the immortal shoots 3 times, its roach is dead, which is absolutely amazing. But it doesn't really matter at this point, as long as I just have like a ton of roaches to just run right in there, I'll just win. And I realized that I actually did get Burrow eventually. The idea here is to just constantly run in. That's exactly what I'm doing, and I'm targeting the pylon. You need to target the detectors. Even if he might have an observer, you want to make sure that you're at least killing the photon cannon, because just in case he doesn't have detection, you'll still be okay, and you'll still be able to wreck him, whoever your opponent is. Now I bury underground, and this is a really important thing for everybody to note. What you want to do is you want to go right under the army. This was in the my first video back video with the burrowed roaches, where you have to go directly on top of the army and then pounce up. Therefore, they can't get into a position where they can hide up against the wall. So if his army was like in a corner, then I can't really surround his army and I can't do enough DPS to actually destroy it immediately. But in this case, I'm right, he's surrounded by all the roaches and I'm just destroying everything. I don't know, there's no point to micro here, it doesn't really matter, and then he's forced to tap out. So, yeah, just a quick recap. What you guys wanted, this initial game was me trying to go, it was actually trying to be Lingbane Hydra was the transit, or honestly, I don't even think it was Lingbane Hydra, it was actually Lingbane Roach. Lingbane and then just try and blindside him with a bunch of roaches. And it worked in my favor eventually because of Banelings, because Banelings was probably one of the best units in the game. They're probably one of the most efficient besides the Marine. And I think that what you guys need to do is just practice this build on the ladder while you're just trying to get a bunch of Zerglings, trying to get as much, or at least 3 base saturation, spread some creep across the map, get Lings, get Banes, and then against the Protoss player, you can either go Hydra Lurker, which I do against Aeneas, this guy, or you can just go Mass Roach, which also works. Mass Roach definitely works, but if he scouts with Immortals if he scouts and he's using Immortals on you, it's very good that you go with a bunch of units that, now this might sound crazy, but it's actually really big brain. What you want to do is you want to force him to go Immortals by getting a bunch of roaches, because if he has an army of only Immortals against a bunch of roaches, then when he eventually kills your roaches, you just go only Zerglings and Banelings, and then you just surround his Immortals, and then you just outright run right into the natural, right into the main, and then he's going to be forced to tap out. So, with that said, hope you guys liked the video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and peace.